Hi, I'm Lauren with Toast Education, and welcome to your front of house resource center. Whether you're a first time server or a seasoned bartender, this page will be your entry point to all things Toast POS. We created articles, videos, and practice opportunities to train you on the best ways to manage your tables, orders, and payments. As always, we love to hear your feedback or any questions you might have about our trainings at the end of each video. Oh, and don't forget to check out Toast Classroom for more learning opportunities.
So welcome everyone to Get Started with Front of House POS. My name is Kim. I have been with Toast for about 5 years at this point, and I've been on the training team for about 3. So super excited to have everyone here learning all about our Toast devices or Toast using a Toast device, going through a shift. We'll also talk about what it takes to close out a shift as well. So with that, now that we have our chat, now that we have our Q&A open, welcome into our class. We're going to be spending about 45 minutes together here today talking about using a Toast device. Whether you're using a terminal, whether you're using even a handheld, really all the same thing. We're going to be going through how to manage orders, how to manage payments, and then we'll spend some time in the shift review as well. You'll notice I am going to be available for questions throughout class, but we do have some Q&A time set aside in case we do want to expand on any scenarios, or if I do have to pin your question throughout class, I'll make sure to revisit. So all in all, 45 minutes worth of content. These 4 objectives are the 4 things that we do want to make sure when we leave class today, we're able to replicate. So being able to find our resources, being able to manage our orders using certain modes, managing our checks using the payment terminal, and then ensuring that we're able to complete a shift review. Those are the 4 main things that we're going to be going over today, and that when we leave class, you feel pretty confident in checking each off. If you have any questions still lingering, using that Q&A to your advantage is going to be a really good move on your part. So I kind of want to make sure that we have these objectives in mind as we go through class. Now, each and every morning when I wake up, everyone at Toast wakes up, we essentially just want to empower you as the community to delight your guests and just really do what you love when you are using a Toast device. When you have a question, I empower each and every one of you to use your resources. So you've actually already found yourself on a key resource. Toast Classroom is available both live and on demand. So if we have a colleague who prefers to stop and start, we have that on demand format. If, like yourself, you're learning here today live, you are actually able to come to as many live classes as you'd like. You're invited to come to office hours as well. And if you find that there is a problem or a concern about your specific business, you can always contact our customer support. So I'm going to go ahead and post in the chat some really helpful links here. Give me a moment. There we are. And I highly recommend that if we are a floor manager, or if we know that we are responsible for just a little bit more than our day-to-day going through a shift, highly recommend that we click on the POS functions for floor managers. Keep that in our back pocket and know that that is a training that we should also take. Today, we're going to be going over the true foundations of using a POS, or using Toast POS. So I did want to just shout that out, that that's an additional knowledge. I also just want to make sure that we are all clicking on Toast Central, that first link there, and maybe saving that as well, sending that to our colleagues, teammates, because Toast Central is the education hub for Toast. This is where I go to, for example, find additional training. You'll notice the training up in the top corner. This is where I could also sign up for office hours. I could get additional help when it comes to, say, something is amiss with my system. I always come into Toast Central first. So those resources, using them as much as possible, sharing them with your team is going to really set y'all up for success. And it's the reason why I start class, because I can be chatting with you for the next hour. Inevitably, there is going to be a question that comes up, and I do want to make sure that all of y'all know that these resources are free and unlimited, and you can use them whenever you'd like. All right. So let's now move into why we're all here today, talking a little bit more about our POS, Toast POS. Before we start really managing our orders, though, I do want to talk about the different modes that Toast offers. So when we think about using Toast, I like to think about the job that I need to do, what I need to complete in the moment. And that's where the different modes come into play. So for example, if a customer comes right up to me and just simply wants to place an order, I use quick order mode. If a customer needs to be assigned to a table, customer sitting at a table, I would go to table service. If I were to be looking to find a check, I would use payment terminal. So let's dive into our terminal itself and talk about these different modes and where I would find them. So first and foremost, we are going to clock in. This is our passcode screen. We'll go ahead and clock in as a server. Clock in and done. And then we will put in our code. If we've already clocked in, we would put in our code and select go. And before we talk about this screen further, notice in the top left corner of our POS, we have an arrow. So we're going to select that arrow, and this is where we're going to start our lesson here today. The main home screen on your POS. Sometimes I call it the main mode screen just because the mode word is right here. And this is where I'm able to find some really key functions in Toast, including those modes that I was talking about, including table service, quick order, and payment terminal. I have access to a couple other modes as well, but today we are going to be focusing on these three. Now, the main home screen is also where I'm able to find, if I'm responsible for, cash drawers. If I am responsible for, say, closing out a cash drawer, I'd click on this button. If I had more than one cash drawer, it would be here. I would select on that cash drawer, and here we are. We could close out that drawer at the end of the shift. So I'll use this arrow. That was just an aside, but again, if I'm responsible for, say, closing out my shift, which we'll talk about today, I can find that shift review from the main screen. So, coming back to the three main modes we're going to be talking about. Recall I said Using Toast is all about jobs to be done. What job am I doing in this moment? If a customer is simply placing an order, I am a cashier, need to check them out, I am going to select Quick Order. Quick Order brings me to this screen. The menu is on the right, the check is on the left. My menu over here, if I had more than one menu, I could select through. I could select through the different groups. And then I could place the order or the item that the customer is asking for. We'll get to that shortly, but just want to make sure that we see that Quick Order gets us directly to our menu. Now, using our arrow in the left corner, we're back to that main home screen. Now, if the job to be done is my guest is sitting at a table, I need to assign them a table and place their order. I would select Table Service and notice that I'm brought to a floor plan. So this is going to be extremely useful for if we are a server, if we are a bartender. Is anyone out there a server, bartender? They know that they're going to be using table service? Use that raise hand button. Awesome. Yes, Callie. Yeah. So you're going to be using table service. Harry as well. Yes. Awesome. Mabel. Awesome. So you're going to be responsible for guests that are seated at a table. And when we go over, we say hi, we're ready to place their order at the POS. We would select, say, table 30. We would put in the number of guests that are seated at that table. Say, for example, 3. We would select done. And notice now we are back to menu on the right, and then on the take that check a little more. Apologies, y'all. It is very windy here in Boston. Can everyone use the raise hand button if you can hear me still? Okay, perfect. Awesome. All right, perfect. Please let me know in the chat if I do lose you. It is very windy here in Boston, but we will power on. Awesome. So the table service mode, when you go through the floor plan, gives the check a little bit more information, including the table number, the number of guests, all of that good stuff. We can even use, this is an optional feature, we can even use order by seat. So for example, and this is exclusive for table service, so Callie, Mabel, all of y'all, if you want to add in the seat numbers and what they are ordering and what they're sharing, that is a feature of table service. So again, the job to be done, if we are seating guests at a table, we would use table service. Now, last, certainly not least though, is payment terminal. Everyone uses payment terminal. It is so helpful to be able to see our checks according to certain statuses. So when I mean by status, I mean open. The guest is still actively with us. They haven't closed out their check just yet. Paid. Paid means that the guest has paid the balance, but the tip has not been applied. So if any of y'all use, say, paper receipts and the guest is given the receipt to sign off and they put in the tip here on the paper receipt, Toast recognizes that the check is closed, but the tip needs to be applied. And that check will land in the paid section. And then closed means everything is closed out. if we needed to look for or update a closed check, say the customer needs a refund, which we'll go over today, it would be in that closed status. So everyone uses Payment Terminal. I find that our bartenders, our managers really like this terminal option as well, this mode option, because they can just see the status of everything going on. Really cool feature of Payment Terminal is that we can start a check straight from here. So select plus new order and notice that we are back to our menu on the right, check on the left. If we wanted to quickly get to our payment terminal, we could actually select all checks and we're back to the payment terminal. So a little tip and trick there. All right, so POS navigation, I encourage us all to think about the jobs that we're doing in the moment and use the modes that match those jobs. Though, if you get in the groove of things and you use table service mode all the time, feel free to use it all the time. It's very much up to you. But I like to think about if I'm looking for a check, I use payment terminal mode. If I'm looking to seat a guest, I use table service. Awesome. So let's now move into our main milestone, managing those guest orders. So in this section, we are going to be going over some 5 fundamental and common actions that we'll need to do when we are managing our guest orders. So today we're going to be adding and modifying that item. We'll talk about how to add a discount. We'll split those items, and then we'll talk about what the difference between sending and paying. There's differences when it comes to those 2 buttons. If we have any questions outside of these 5 topics, please feel free to ask, absolutely. But I do want to make sure that we go over the 5 foundational areas that are most commonly used by everyone using Toast. So first and foremost, let's start off in quick order. Our menu is on the right, check is on the left, and our customer standing in front of us is ordering off of the cafe menu. The customer has asked for a small coffee, so we'll go ahead and select the button small hot coffee. Now, some items may have additional options that pop up. So notice when I selected the hot coffee, the coffee group popped up. That's like an additional interaction. This is called a modifier group. These are called our modifiers. I think about that. Hey, customer, would you like to put half and half? Would you like to add sugar? Some items, if the customer says, no, I don't need any, I just want black coffee, we could select done. And that's no problem at all. That doesn't stop the barista from still pouring that hot coffee. Now, some items, though, we would select, say, fresh juice. Some items come with what we call required modifier groups. So if the customer were to select fresh juice and not tell us what type of juice, Toast would actually politely let us know, hey, we can't order this item without making that required modifier, that required modification. So we could say, okay, cool, orange juice, and be on our way. So 2 different modifier groups, required versus not. If the customer actually says, hey, I'd actually like to add sugar, we can always select the item and notice the modifier group pops back up. So we can go ahead and add sugar. Now, there are other selections that we could select from over here, other modifiers, including dining option. So dining option on the item level, remember that we're selecting the item, means that the customer has indicated this one item should be prepared differently than the entire check. So notice in this top left corner, dine in, that's actually the dine in button for the entire check. If we wanted to say they want their hot coffee in a to-go instead of this typical ceramic mug, we could select that takeout. So another modification on the item level that we could make. Say the customer has a request that we don't have pre-generated in this modifier group. We could use the special request button to further modify. So for example, maybe they do dash of caramel. We could even put in an upcharge, 25 cents, and we would add that request. So again, another way to modify our items, either in the pre-generated modifier group or through that special request. So, first step, we have added in items and we have modified our items. Let's now talk about adding a discount. So this discount button in the top corner, top right corner of the check, when we select, we have the ability to apply to either the check, so the entire check, or to an individual item. If we select apply to items and we select that discount, Toast will ask us which item we are looking to discount. So we could say fresh juice, for example. Now that discount will apply exclusively to that item. Now, if we made a mistake, that is A-okay, and we haven't sent the check just yet, we could select discount, select apply to item. Notice that there's like a halo around it, a highlight. We could deselect and make that discount go away. So several things that we're able to edit prior to sending off the ticket. So we've added in a discount. Let's go ahead and add that back on in. So we'll put that fresh juice. The customer has also asked for a muffin, so we'll add that in as well. And let's now talk about splitting. Very common request. So we'll go ahead and select the split button. And say we have two guests in front of us that are splitting the chocolate chip muffin. All right, so they'd like to split that payment. We'll go ahead and select the item. And notice in the top right corner, split evenly. We'll select split evenly. And we can split as many times as you would like. So if you have a 9-person table that wants to split that basket of fries 9 times, you can. For this example, we're going to do 2. So we'll select 2 and done. And Toast creates fractions. Apologies. Creates portions. So if we select the chocolate chip muffin, the half, and move that to the next check, we now have 2 checks. One with half of chocolate chip muffin, the other with the other half of the muffin. Anne asked, your screen has split and discount in the top right. I'm on a handheld and I don't see that on mine. Is that because I'm in test mode or because I'm on a handheld? Great question. So let me pin that question, Anne, until I get back to the main screen, and I might be able to point out something that may be hiding the discount or split. So I will pin that question for you, Anne, and bring that back once we're on that screen. Okay. So we've created 2 checks. Once we have those 2 checks and we select done, we're back to our initial screen. So, Anne, in your scenario, do you see 3 dots right here? And does it bring up more information, including the split and the discount? Let me know in the chat if those 3 dots. And that's a good call out for everyone as well. These 3 dots give more information. There's more opportunities here, including scheduling, voiding an order. Anne said, it brings up other options, but I don't see split or discount. Heard. Okay, that also might be a configuration on your personal account. Let me pin your question, Anne, and I'll return back to that in the Q&A. It may be something that I want to ask more questions about. Awesome. Thank you so much. But that is a good call out, though. It does bring a lot of value. Even if it didn't get to the heart of your question, these 3 dots. If we don't see an additional thing, including the schedule, including the void, we could use those 3 dots. So awesome. Perfect. All right. So now that we've split the check, we now have 2 checks that we're able to help those 2 guests out with. Now let's go ahead and say there we go. Apologies. So let's talk about the red. The reason these items are in red is because we actually left the screen without sending the item. Oop. So when we leave a screen without sending an item, those items are actually turning red. So what we want to do is select those items. And now let's talk about the difference between send and pay. So send would send those items off to be prepared. So 3, 2, 1. And then I get another ticket. Menu is on the right, checks on the left, and I can continue helping the next guest. So this is very common if we have, say, like a cafeteria line style. The first cashier takes the guest order. The second cashier takes the payment. So in the scenario that we are the second cashier, we would select all checks. And notice that we have our open checks. So we could find that check 2 or check 3 to be able to help the guest. Or we sent check 2. Now, that would be send. If we want to do it in one fell swoop, meaning we are the person who orders, we're also the person who takes the payment, that is where pay comes into play. So let's go ahead and select 3, 2, 1, pay. And we have our pay screen. So the pay would actually, apologies, I think my emulator hasn't woken up today. So we have to select that item, we select pay. There we go. Apologies. The item, when we select pay, is sent off. and we're here to take the order. So I'm actually going to demonstrate that one more time, just to be a little bit more smooth. So we would do large hot coffee. If we wanted to select pay to collect the order, notice that the item sends off directly and we're there to collect. So two different scenarios that we could do. We could either select send to send off and not collect payment right in that moment, or we would select pay to collect payment in the moment. So 5 different things that we most commonly see when interacting and managing with guest orders. We modify those items, we add a discount. Very common to see that we split our items. And then there is two different scenarios. We could either send to be prepared, or we could select pay to get that payment right away. So that actually brings us to taking a payment. So let's now move into how we would collect a payment, how we would actually split a payment. So if, say, a customer isn't splitting by item, but they're splitting by check, we're going to go over that. And then we'll also go over the concept of digital receipts. So let's go ahead and select pay. We are now on that pay screen, and say you have a customer, 2 customers splitting that large hot coffee. They just want to split it monetarily. We can do that by selecting split evenly, and then you can split by how many times you need to. I find that splitting by item and presenting the customer with their own checks is my preferred way. However, though, I do find that some people do just want to split the balance, and we can do that via that split evenly button right here. So 2 different ways to split. Another way that we're able to cash out or tender out is by using our fast cash button. So say, for example, the customer hands us $10. We can select $10 and Toast will do the math for us right away. They'll tell us the change due, all of that good stuff. We'll ask the customer, do we want a receipt or not? We'll do no receipt. Awesome. So let's find another check to close out. So let's come back to, say, check 2. So if we have any open checks, quickest way to get to the pay button is or pay screen is by selecting that pay button. And we get directly there. Now, say, for example, this customer hands us a card. Let's talk about the digital receipt format. So digital receipts is saving us paper, saving us a lot of time as well. So the customer hands us a card. I do have to key in a card, but best practice is to always swipe or tap. And this is our digital receipt screen. Oh, that's no problem, Anne. You are not a bother at all. The solution, y'all, for Anne is to scroll up on the handheld. That is a great call out. So thank you, Anne. Thank you so much. But I'm still going to return back just in case. So our digital receipt screen prompts the customer to sign and tip. So this is actually a really good call out for all of our handheld users. If we have the customer who's signing and tipping straight from the handheld, we could even have them do it from the guest-facing display screen. This saves us a lot of time and effort on the backside because we've already captured the tip and the signature. The customer still gets the opportunity for a receipt, but we do not have to put in that paper receipt at the end of our shift. That paper receipt tip at the end of our shift. I'll still go over that today, of course, but using digital receipts is something that is going to be both environmental and something that is going to have your checks land directly in the closed status. So let's actually go over what it looks like when we aren't using digital receipts. So I'm going to go ahead and turn those off. Customer hands us the card. Again, best practice is to always use your device. I just have to key in for testing purposes. All right. So when not using digital receipts, that prompt does not show up. As you can imagine, if you can imagine with me with the printer, it's printing out those 2 receipts and we would hand that to the customer. Notice though, those 2 checks are no longer in the open status. The one that we used, the paper receipts, lands in our paid status. And the one that we use digital receipts lands in the closed status. So really cool opportunities there. I love the digital receipt platform. I think it makes things a lot easier on the tail end of things. But again, if you do not want digital receipts, you can turn those off. That is no problem at all. But I do like using those. So that is taking a payment. If we ever needed to adjust a payment or refund, we would select the closed status. We would find that check. And say, for example, the customer didn't think their hot coffee was hot enough. That's okay, it happens. That is a 2-step process. We need to void the item first and then refund. So we're going to select update, select the item in question, and notice in the top right corner, void. So we do need to void that item because it's been sent. Now we may have a pop-up box that says manager required. That is a-okay. That just means we don't have the correct permission to move forward with this feature. So I would call my manager on over. They would put in their passcode, and then we could go and proceed with the void. So that doesn't necessarily mean if we see that manager pop up, doesn't mean we can't do something. We just need to bring our manager on over and explain what's happening. Once we have that voided item, notice that there is a balance that's due. That's due back to the customer. So we'll now have to select pay, select balance due. It's best to keep your manager around when it comes to voids and refunds. That pop-up box most likely will pop up again when we're refunding. We'll go ahead and proceed, and then we'll go ahead and update. So with that 2-step process, we have voided the item and then refunded that card. Once we feel comfortable, we could actually go ahead and close that check. Now, I do want to show us a tip and trick. So, for example, that was that example, we voided the item and then we refunded the card. What if it was, oh, actually, let's go back to the visa. There we go. What if it was something that we could fix in the moment? Say we gave ourselves a $200 tip and we meant $2. Instead of voiding, so notice that button right here, I encourage us all to use the adjust button. The adjust button allows us to adjust the payment that's been applied to the check. So we can adjust a tip amount. Say we even rang a check on check 2 and we meant check 3. We have the opportunity to adjust. So I always like to say avoid the void as much as possible and use the adjust. So a tip and trick from y'all. I've been in this industry a long time. That adjust button has helped me in many ways. All right. So we have completed a payment. We talked about splitting a check evenly. That opportunity there, if the customers want to split it in half, by thirds. We also talked about the various ways we can take a tender using that fast cash button. We spoke about using a credit card and using the digital receipts. It's the fastest way for a customer to sign and tip. They are still able to get a receipt as needed, though. And then we also talked about adjusting a payment, kind of blended that chapter right in there. We talked about when we can adjust, we should use that opportunity, including moving a payment to a different check. We accidentally put it on check 2 when we meant 3. We can use that adjust as needed. All right. Now let's go ahead and talk about the end of our day. I encourage us all to use the shift review. I do recognize that some businesses do not require a shift review, but I do recommend as each employee that you make it a habit just to at least go through it. If it is required, of course you should go through, you do have to go through it. But I encourage each and every one of you just to make sure, because it is a really good way to see what we've done at the end of the day. And if it's required, we do go through those lists of business questions to really wrap everything up in a bow. So when we are at the end of our day, we're going to select that arrow in the top left corner until we get to the main home screen. Under My Account, select Shift Review. On the left-hand side, we'll see an overview of our day. We can see any tips that we've earned, all of that good stuff. Now on the right-hand side, this is really why I really, really like the shift review, because it's a good reminder. Say we forgot to close out one of our checks. That paid check means that we didn't apply one of our tips. So let's go ahead, let's make sure we close out that check. We'll select the check in question and select pay. Because it's in the paid column, we select pay. Now notice that tip line, it's blinking. Toast wants us to get paid. Say the customer gave us $1. We did really well. And we'll go ahead and close that check. Now with that, the aim is to have 0 open, 0 paid, and all in the closed area. Once we select the arrow, we will see back to our shift review. we will see that friendly green check mark. We can then move on and declare our cash tips. So again, this is not required of every business. It's business to business, but I generally do see most businesses require that declaration. So maybe we made $6. Ooh, we made a lot. Okay, maybe we made $2. There we go. And we'll close our shift. Now, this is also an important point. If I am a server and I'm not actively putting all of my cash into a cash drawer, that means that I have a server bank, usually in an apron, that I need to reconcile with my manager. The nice thing about Toast is it does math for us. So if I know that I'm walking at the end of the night with my credit card tips, Toast will actually do the math for us. It knows that we had $4.28, $4 in sales. It knows that we had $3 in credit card tips. We would keep that and owe 92 cents to the restaurant. So that's a really helpful thing if we know we take home our credit card tips. This math won't be here if our business decides that we pay out through payroll. So again, only will be here if we walk with our credit card tips and cash tips. Now we would put either in the cash drawer or in a safe. Don't use cash drawer means a safe. And then we would go ahead and clock out. So that shift review is one of the most common shift reviews. Couple customizations that the businesses can decide on the back end of things. But what we just went through here, these 3 steps, the most common things that we need to do at the end of the night. Close our checks, declare our cash tips, and reconcile any cash that we may not have been putting in a cash drawer. And then we would clock out. So a shift review, highly recommend we do each day so that we know what we've done with our shift and we know exactly what's going on when it comes to our tips. So with that, everyone, we have looped back around to our objective slide. Please take a look at these 4 objectives. Are we able to recreate each? Are we able to go into a terminal or practice in one of our practice spaces, which I'll show us, and find quick order? Are we able to update checks? If we are feeling okay, that is awesome. If we have additional questions, please stick around. But I do encourage each and every one of you to practice. That is the biggest thing that we could possibly do. We could, if we have access to a terminal, practice there. If we do not, I encourage us to use Toast Central. I'm going to post this in the chat as well. The reason I encourage is because we have an entire place where y'all can practice adjusting a check, splitting a check evenly, splitting by item. All of these are hands-on tutorials. We didn't even go over hold, send, and stay. There's more to learn. And all of these are interactive as well. So please make sure that if you hear nothing else, you either practice on a terminal or you practice using those tutorials. And you can come back to class whenever you'd like. But with that, everyone, thank you for being here. I am now going to open this up for an optional Q&A.
Let's take a look at the most common screens you'll be using on your Toast POS. Please note that there may be some slight differences with what you see based on the configurations set up in Toast's backend. First up is the passcode screen. This is where you'll clock in and out of your shifts and breaks. as well as access the point of sale. Enter your personal passcode and select Go. If you're a full-service restaurant with table service mode set as your primary mode, you'll see the table service screen as the default screen after clocking in. If you're a quick service restaurant with quick order mode set as the primary mode, skip to the next section of the video to view quick order. In table service mode, you can navigate between service areas by swiping to the side or selecting the toggles at the top of the screen. All tables will appear below and may be colored to reflect the status of the guest's check. To start a check, select a table from the floor plan. You may be prompted to enter in a guest count. This will bring up the order screen. From here, you can navigate through menus, groups, items, quickly ring in guest orders, and collect payment. Menus are displayed in the top row, followed by menu groups, and then menu items. When you select an item from the bottom row, it will be added to the order field. Then, if there are any required modifiers, you'll be prompted to enter the guest's selection. Below the order field, you'll see the option to send the order to the kitchen or enter payment when the time comes. Next up is the payment terminal, which you can use to update a check, make a payment, or refund a guest's check. Select all checks to open this screen. You'll be able to toggle between open, paid, and closed checks by swiping to the side or using the tabs at the top. Find your desired check and select Pay to enter a guest's payment. From the Closed Checks tab, you can find a previously closed check and select Pay to adjust or void the payment, or reprint the receipt.
In this video, we'll walk through your quick order screen, button layout, and check details to help you place orders efficiently for your guests.
To go to the order screen on the POS, navigate to the main menu and select Quick Order Mode. Let's go over the button layout of these screens. Your menu groups and items appear on the right side of your screen. Menus at the top, groups in the middle, and items at the bottom. The rewards, gift cards, and house accounts buttons will also be in the same section of your menus. If you'd like to search for a menu item or a SKU number, you can do so using the search bar above your menus. If your restaurant has open items enabled, you'll add an open item using this button. Now that we have an item added to the order, let's look at some features on the left side of the order screen that will improve the speed of order entry. Commonly used actions on your menu are front and center and organized so that related actions are grouped together. Everything related to an order is organized by the check. You'll see the Set tab name at the top of this section next to the check number. Below that, you'll see the Dining button, where you'll be able to select the dining option, and Schedule Order button. This is also where the Print button will be. The overflow menu to the right of the check number will be home to many ordering functions. Here, you can split checks, adjust the number of guests, change servers, transfer a check to a table, change customer information, add service charges, add tax-exempt numbers, promo codes, and void orders. When you select an item from an order, your screen will adjust to allow you to change the quantity, remove an item, and repeat an item. You can also view item details, including descriptions and images if they've been added, depending on the settings that you or your manager have configured in Toast Web. Depending on your restaurant settings, this section is also where you're going to adjust dining options, change courses, split items, add any special requests, discount items, and make modifier adjustments. If they're enabled for your restaurant, the Hold, Stay, and Send buttons will be right here, but more on what these buttons do in a little bit. On the bottom of the check, you'll see the Pay button with the order's total displayed, a Discount button, and then the No Sale or Fast Cash button. Let's talk about a commonly used ordering feature you may use at your restaurant, server item firing. For the sake of this demo, let's switch things to dark mode. If you didn't know, you can easily switch between dark and light modes on your POS by navigating to the main menu, device setup, and then selecting which POS display theme you'd like that would fit into your restaurant. Awesome. Now let's dive into how you can control the pace of orders sent to the kitchen.
Server item firing allows servers to individually hold and send items on a check. Use the hold button on the order screen as a true hold, meaning that once an item is held, it will not fire until it's selected and sent. And add new items to the check and then send those new items to the kitchen without sending held items. There are two options for using server item firing on your POS. Now, in either case, each item will need to be individually selected and then sent.
The first option is to hold items first. Begin by adding items to a check and then select the items to put on hold and select the hold button. All items except for the ones kept on hold will be automatically sent to the kitchen. The second option is to send items first. Begin by adding items to a check and then select one or more items to send by selecting the Stay button. These items, which were not sent to the kitchen, will be automatically held.
In this video, you'll learn how to navigate service areas, check details, and the functions of table service buttons, like assigning servers to tables. Let's get started.
In table service mode, each table will show guest count, which shows how many guests are currently at the table, table timers, which shows how long a check has been opened in minutes, the table number, which will always be visible in the center of the table, the total spend, which shows the dollar amount of all the checks for each table, and lastly, the server assigned to that table by using their initials. You can also view all of this data in a list view by opening the Details pane in the top right corner of your screen. With our pan and zoom feature, similarly to how you would on your smartphone, pinching to zoom in on the screen will enlarge the tables on the screen so that you can focus on specific tables or view more data that cannot fit on those smaller tables. Pinching the screen and zooming back out will show you more tables and shrink the text to fit it perfectly on the table itself. Instead of pinching the screen, you can also simply tap the zoom button in the top right-hand corner of the screen to zoom in to fit the tables that are assigned to a specific server. Tapping that button again shows the entire table service screen. Let's open the Details panel within Table Service mode, which shows a full list of open table data. If you select a table while this panel is open, it'll show you the details for that table. It also includes buttons that allow you to make changes directly to the table. Next to the check number, use this button to move the check to a different table. Below the check number, there are also some buttons to change the server assigned to the table and adjust the number of guests. At the bottom of the check, you can print the receipt, update the order, and easily go to the payment screen. If the check has been split between guests, you can swipe left and right on this panel to view the separate checks. At the top of the screen, you'll see a service navigation bar that allows you to scroll between different service areas that are configured at your restaurant. Lastly, you can use the Assign Server button here to assign any given table to a server that's working.
Let's learn about server item firing, a new feature with your new Toast POS experience. Server item firing is a new meal pacing feature that gives your servers full control over meal pacing on their POS. Server item firing allows servers to individually hold and send items on a check, use the hold button on the order screen as a true hold, meaning that once an item is held, it will not fire until it's selected and sent, and add new items to the check and then send those new items to the kitchen without sending held items. First, let's make sure that you have the right settings enabled in Toast's back end. Make sure you have the setting called Individually Hold and Send Items enabled. Also, if your restaurant primarily uses quick order mode, make sure to enable the Hold, Stay, and Send buttons on the front of house page under Quick Order. Note that these buttons will already be automatically enabled in table service mode. Okay, let's get into it. There are two options for using server item firing on your POS. Now, in either case, each item will need to be individually selected and then sent. The first option is to hold items first. Begin by adding items to a check and then select the items to put on hold and select the hold button. All items except for the ones kept on hold will be automatically sent to the kitchen. The second option is to send items first. Begin by adding items to a check and then select one or more items to send by selecting the Send button. These items which were not sent to the kitchen will be automatically held.
Your order taking screen on the POS will look similar to this one. On the right side of the screen, you'll see the menu you'll be working out of. The left side will display an itemized list of what you have ordered on the check. Let's say the guest wants to order signature nachos. Since nachos are usually considered an appetizer, I'm going to select the appetizers menu and then select signature nachos. Notice that the food and appetizers menus have been highlighted. This indicates which menu we are looking at. Let's add a garden salad to the order. I'll select the food menu, followed by the salads menu, then select garden salad. I can add a second garden salad by simply selecting the garden salad button a second time. As you can see, all of the items selected display on the left side of the POS screen. You can easily view all payments made in your restaurant and even make changes to them using Toast Payment Terminal. Here's how you access all of your payments. From the dashboard, under Mode, select Payment Terminal, and you'll be shown all payments categorized at the top by Open, Paid, and Closed. An open check means no payment has been attached to it. It still has a balance due. A paid check means that a credit card has been swiped, but the check hasn't been closed yet, and there hasn't been a tip added to it. A closed check means that the check has been adjusted to its final amount, meaning a tip, if applicable, has been added and the check has been adjusted for its final amount. By the end of the day, any paid check credit card payments will be captured even if the check hasn't been completely closed. Once captured at the end of the day, the check will be closed. Advanced filtering is an easy and efficient way to sort and filter all of your checks for the day. Here, you can filter or sort your checks any way you'd like, by oldest, most recent, check number, table number, or even dollar amount owed. For instance, I want to see my most recent check, so I sort by that, and I can see that check 1 is my most recent. Now I want to easily find check number 20, so I sort by check number, and I see it at the top of my list.
In this video, we'll take you through your POS payment screens, including where to find different payment options and how to locate all of your checks. Let's dive in.
On the left, you see your check details, which will include the quantity and price of each item in your order. Within the payment details here, there will also be a pre-authorization banner if credit card pre-authorization is enabled at your restaurant. If a card is pre-authorized, you'll see that green banner displaying the last 4 digits of the credit card and the guest's name. In the middle of the screen, you'll see the balance due section. Here is where you can enter the amount paid by the guest in the amount tendered box. 3 secondary action buttons are below the balance due section: the split evenly button, the rewards button, and the service charge button. Split evenly will take the total balance due and divide it evenly however you choose. The rewards button will bring you to this screen where you can key in, swipe, or scan the guest loyalty card. The service charge button is where you can apply or remove any service charges, like a delivery fee or a corkage fee. On the right side of the payment selection screen, you'll see your payment options like gift cards and house accounts, plus any additional payment options that have been pre-configured for your restaurant, like Uber Eats. If a check has been pre-authorized, the saved card will appear right here on the top. The overflow menu on the top right of the screen is where you can toggle on and off digital receipts for your guests. Now, let's check out the payment terminal where you can view all of your checks. When you select a check, use the buttons on the bottom left to update the order, print the receipt, or go to the payment selection screen. That tab bar at the top, including your open, paid, and closed checks, will show check counts next to each tab so that you can keep track of how many of each check type you have. For instance, we see 1 paid check. You can also filter your checks using this button in the top right-hand corner of the screen. Once you select this button, you'll see all of the sorting and filtering options on the left pane. Finally, when it comes to searching for your checks, using the magnifying glass, you can search across all open, paid, and closed checks and even filter by order status. How easy is that? And with that, you're off to the races. Thanks so much for watching.
Let's show how to split one check into multiple checks with Toast. I'm sure you've come across a scenario where a customer asks you to split the check into separate checks, or by what each individual person ordered. On the check, you'll want to select the 3 vertical blue dots and select Split. You'll then be prompted to choose which items you want to split up and on which checks. Do this by selecting the check mark to the left of whatever item you want to move to a different check, and then click on the new check you want to move those items to. You can also split one item up amongst multiple guests by highlighting the item and then selecting Split Evenly to select how many guests you wish to split the item up by. In this example, I want to split the nachos between 2 guests, so I'm going to select Split Evenly and then select 2, and then you'll see it splits in half. If your restaurant uses seat numbers, you can also split the check by seat number by selecting that option in your top navigation bar. When you select Done, you'll be taken back to your order screen. Select the check, and then swipe left or right to see all the checks split up. It's a common occurrence for a table to want to split a check evenly when it's time to pay. That's easy to do with Toast. Simply navigate to your payment screen, and you'll see the Split Evenly button on the bottom of the screen. Here, you can select the number of ways you'd like to split the check. In this case, there were 3 guests that dined at the table, so I'm going to select 3. The balance due shows the total amount due, and the amount tendered shows the equal amount each person now owes. In this example, the balance due is $59.08, and the amount each person owes is $19.69. The first person paid in cash, so the balance due is now 2/3 of the total check. I now split the payment in half since there are 2 people left that need to pay $19.69 each. Once paid in full by all parties, this check will move to the Closed Checks tab of your previous checks. On this check, let's say that the customer asks you to put $20 on one card and wants to pay the rest in cash. Enter $20 into the amount tendered field, then select Card. After following the payment procedures, the check will now show the remaining balance as the balance due. Now I'm going to select Cash and close out the check completely.
Hello everyone, my name is Jerry from the Toast Customer Training Team, and in this video, we are going to cover the main actions that you should take when closing out of Toast at the end of day. Before using these features, you will need to complete some setup within Toast Web to best meet your restaurant's needs. However, throughout this video, we will link some helpful resources to ensure that you are set up for success. Let's dive in. To access the shift review, we'll need to navigate to the terminal menu. From the order screen, navigate to the left-hand corner where we can see that arrow. That'll allow us to navigate back to that terminal menu, navigate to My Account, and select Shift Review. The Shift Review is an optional end-of-day task that walks hourly employees through all the steps that need to be completed prior to clocking out and closing out their shifts. On the Shift Review, we'll see two sections. The left pane is going to include the Shift Review report. The Shift Review report also provides employees with an overview of their sales transactions, tip amounts, and other end-of-shift information. In the Shift Review report on the left-hand side, we'll be able to see information throughout an employee's shift. Employees with certain permissions can view their own personal sales data and payment data in this report. We'll have a section, Employee Account. Cash in hand means cash payments that were taken and cash is owed to the restaurant. Scrolling down to Tips and Fees Earned, employees can see non-cash tips such as credit card tips and gratuities, as well as tips declared. As we continue to scroll, we are going to see information about the employee's entire shift, including total discounts, total cash payments, total payments, and My Guest Report. The Guest Report includes information about the total guests served and an average spend per guest. On the right-hand side, we'll see the Shift Review steps. The Shift Review steps will include a list of steps an employee must complete prior to clocking out. When a step is completed, a green check mark will appear next to that step. Step number 1 is to close checks. Employees will be able to see if they have any unpaid or unclosed checks, as well as closed checks. Employees must close all checks in order to complete their shift review. If any checks are not closed, they can select Close Checks. If we see that green check mark, that means we're good to move on to the following step. Declaring cash tips refers strictly to cash tips, not credit card tips. This step will only be shown if it's enabled within Toast Web and if the employee is marked as a tipped employee. We'll go ahead, declare those cash tips, and select Declare to move on to the following step. Step number 3, we have Reconcile Cash and Tips. Again, employees will turn in any cash in hand and collect any non-cash tips and gratuity in cash if relevant. Step number 4 is clocking out. An employee has the opportunity to clock out of their shift or clock out and start a new shift. Employees also have the option to reopen a shift review if we need to make any edits. By selecting Edit, Yes, Make Edits, with the correct permissions or with the manager passcode, we'll be able to make those edits. We'll select Reopen Shift. Again, employees can also reopen the shift within the current work week to recalculate its data. When a shift is reopened, previous cash and tip entries will be overwritten, meaning that you will have to turn in your cash and collect your tips again. All of this depends on those manager permissions on what we're able to do here. Once that looks good, we'll proceed to closing out our shift. If an employee is unable to clock out, a manager can complete a shift review for their employees. Managers can now edit and adjust their staff's time entries from the POS utilizing the Review Employee Shifts function, which is located under Manager Activities. Navigating to Manager Activities and selecting Review Employee Shifts. Managers can now adjust their shifts and employee shifts and clock in and clock out times directly from this screen. Now let's discuss how to adjust an active shift. An active shift means an employee has not closed their shift. If an employee is clocked in, the manager can adjust their clock-in time. By selecting their clock-in over on the right-hand side is how we're able to make that adjustment. However, please take note that no clock-out adjustment is shown because the employee has not clocked out yet, as well as Declare Tips button will not be shown until the employee has closed their shift. To clock out an employee from the screen, tap on the Clock Out button. If the manager clocks out the employee, they will be redirected to the shift review screen and prompted to close the shift before clocking out. To reopen a shift, the manager will tap Remove next to the Clock Out section and save those changes. Then the shift will be moved to the Active Shifts section. Now let's talk about the closeout day. To view the closeout day, start by selecting Closeout Day located under Manager Activities from the Toast POS main menu. The Closeout Day page is an optional feature that provides you with an audit report on the current status of all checks and employee activity. This is not required to be manually carried out each night to turn the day over in the system. Toast will carry out these functions automatically for each restaurant on a nightly basis, so manual intervention is not required. Please take note that Toast will not close any unpaid orders. These will remain open until they are resolved either by being paid or by being voided. So to close out those checks, select View Checks. From the Closeout Day screen, we'll also be able to view all of our employees that are clocked in, any cash drawers that need to be closed, and also we'll have the opportunity to create a deposit. A deposit is cash removed from a restaurant to be deposited in a bank or other financial institution. A cash deposit should be the final cash management operation of the day. After all checks are closed, shift reviews are completed, and all cash drawers are closed, you can use the cash deposit screen to enter in the actual cash amount of the deposit into the Toast platform. To close the cash drawer directly from this page, select Close Drawers, and we'll be redirected to that area. We'll get into that with more detail in just a bit. To create a deposit, we're going to select Create Deposit, and we'll be able to add in our deposit by selecting Add Deposit. On the left-hand side, we'll be able to view the Z Report. The Z Report is a sales summary that can be printed by an in-store receipt printer when using the Closeout Date function. If we'd like to change the date of this report, we can simply click into the date and choose the date that we'd like to see. The Z Report is also completely customizable. You can configure the information that will display on the Z Report by navigating over to Toast Web and navigating to UI options. From this page, we'll also be able to print the report. Keep in mind that printing the report does not turn the day over into the next day. The data updates in real time as sales occur. On this screen, we may also see an auto-resolve button. You can auto-resolve certain issues if you need to close out quickly or want to resolve a large number of issues with the same solution. We may also see an end date button. Open checks must be resolved before you can end the day. In fact, the end date button won't be available until all open checks have been resolved. And you cannot auto-resolve open checks. Another report that is similar to the Z Report that we can see on the Closeout Day screen are service reports. Located under Manager Activities, we'll navigate over to Service Reports. Service Reports provides you with the same data as a Z Report, but broken down by the day parts, such as service periods, that are set up for your restaurant. So we'll be able to see those different service periods by selecting this drop-down menu. The Service Period drop-down menu will allow you to filter your sales data to a specific day part, such as breakfast, lunch, dinner, brunch, etc. You can also select Print Report at the bottom of the screen if desired. Depending on your restaurant, you may or may not have a cash drawer that needs closing. The cash management section on your device contains all of the cash drawer related actions that you'll need to manage your cash and balance on a daily basis. Navigate over to Cash Management and select Cash Drawers. The cash drawers live in 3 different states: active, open, and closed. If a drawer is in an active state, that means that it is in use and taking payments. An open state means that it is not in use and the drawer is not taking any cash payments, but will accept other types of cash transactions, such as cash in or payout entries. The drawer has not been closed, so the expected balance has not been entered into the POS. And the third state is a closed state, which means the drawer is not taking cash payments or other cash transactions. The bills have been counted and the actual closing balance has been entered into the POS. You can change the state of cash drawers as needed during the restaurant business hours. And if a drawer has been locked to us, we'll need to close out the cash drawer before we can clock out. To close an active drawer, navigate to the Active Drawer tab and select the drawer to close. Before we close out our drawer, let's talk about some of the buttons over on the right-hand side. The No Sale button is used to open the cash drawer without adding or removing cash. So this is typically used to count your drawer. The Cash In function adds cash into the restaurant. By selecting the Cash In button, that will add cash to an active and open drawer. The Cash Out button is used to remove cash from an active and open drawer. So this is typically done when there is too much cash in the drawers and some needs to be removed to a safe or to another safe location. The Cash Drop button removes cash from an active drawer or open drawer without closing it. New Drawer will allow us, after closing one drawer at the end of the shift, we may need to open another for the start of the next shift. Adjust Starting Balance will allow us to adjust that starting balance. And finally, Close Drawer is what we're going to select to close our drawer. With the correct permissions, we'll be able to see the cash expected. This is the amount that Toast is expecting to see in the drawer. Cash Actual is the actual amount that we've counted in the drawer. So maybe we've counted a total of $593. Cash Over is letting us know the difference between cash expected and cash actual. And Comment allows us to add comments. Count Bills is another way that we're able to count our bills within the drawer. Now to close out the drawer, we're simply going to select Close Drawer, and our drawer has now been closed. Once we close a drawer, we'll be able to see details about that closed drawer in the cash drawer report. Please keep in mind that anytime we close a cash drawer, another drawer will open under Active. So if applicable, once we close our cash drawers, now we can move on to clocking out. And also to quickly show us, once we have closed out our drawer, if we navigate back to Closeout Day, because the drawer has been closed, we will now see the End Date button and the Auto Resolve button. To clock out from the passcode screen, enter in your passcode, select Time Clock. We'll select the Clock Out button at the bottom of our screen. This will take us back to the shift review, and once again, once we've completed the steps within the shift review, we'll be able to select Clock Out and complete our shift review. We'll also have the opportunity to print our shift review. Thank you so much for watching this video. For more information and helpful resources, please make sure to check out Toast Central.